Late night brakes lock, hear the tires squeal. Red light can't stop, so I spin the wheel. My world goes black before I
in, because it's on that side, really, right? Even though, if you look at it, it's backwards, right? This should be the out, because no, you have to always flip it upside down. And the same is true with PCBs. Make sure that you pay attention to what way your pots line up, depending on how you want it to look at the end result. So I know that I always want my drive on the left, my tone in the middle, and my level on the right. Okay? Another thing you need to pay attention to is pot spacing, right? You can't have your pots side by side like this if you plan to use board-mounted pots, and I'll show you why. I'm going to left-click on this and change the package. I'm going to go to the full-size pot. Look at that. I'm going to do the same with this one. Go to the full-size pot. Look at that. See how the edges of the pots now overlap each other? Obviously not going to work, right? You can't, you have to have it at least spaced that far apart. If you plan on using a specific size of knob, you have to make sure that you're not only far enough apart from the other pot so that the knobs fit, but you actually even have to plan for a space in between the knobs. Otherwise, if they're trying to touch and you drill slightly off, just a little bit off like that, you know, the pot will forgive you, but the knob will not. So always think ahead about what your spacing is. Now, if you're in the other format here, like this, right, you always think of things as in from the center to the center. So I know that from the center of pin 2 on my pot to the center of pin 2 on this other pot, I have to have 0.8 inches. That's 800 mils. So if I go right here, as you can see, up here it gives me the specific location of my cursor. See that there? It's 325 at 2100. I actually can move this up a bit based on some other knowledge I have. So I'm at 325. So if I move this way, you see the one that moves, it's the one on the left. So I need 325. So when I put my center on this one, it has to be 800 mils higher. So really easy math, but I'll show you on a calculator. So 325 plus 800 mils is 1125. So this one here, my center, needs to be 1125. So look at that, right there, 800 mils apart from each other. And then we go, put the calculator again, 25 plus 800 mils equals 1925. So I'm going to go over here. Look at that, it's at 1950, so I can move it back a bit. 1925. Now all my pots are spaced, and you can actually even check to see if they're all level. So 2125, 2125, 2125. Now they're all exactly the same. And if I go here, right there, that'll tell me where my corner is. 125 and 2125. You go up here, 2250, 2125. There's 125 difference. 0, 125. So now this is precisely the same distance from the top edge and the side edge. Double check this one, 2125 by 2125, 2250, 2250. That is exactly 125 from every edge. Look at that. Now, you might not think that that's important, but I do, because I really like things to line up very neatly. I like things to be square. I like things to be neat. These are just some really easy tips for how to get things aligned. Just pay attention to where your cursor is, and you can line things up really easily. Okay, so once I've got my pots in place, I generally want to sort out my ins and outs. So this is my in. Here, it's labeled with an I. Now, I want my input to be down here in the corner. And I'm going to do the same thing that I just did with this one, because I want it 125 from the bottom and 125 from the wall, left. 125, 125. Look at that, it's in the corner. And then I've got my out here. Spin this around so I can see it there. I'm going to do the same. It should be at 125 and 2125. Bingo. In the right spot. Last but not least, I need to sort out my plus 9 volts. I need to add that here, and we'll add one of the ground pads as well. What I'm going to do is I'm also going to add a ground up here, and a ground down. We'll go with at the output. Now, in fact, I'm going to move the output over a bit and put the ground in the corner at 125 and 2125. You can zoom in here. Let's get things precise. Okay, so we got this at 2125. There we go. Okay, so now everything is in spot. Right, we've got one more pad here for LED. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put that one in the corner. You know what? Actually, you know what? Because of the way this layout is done, I'm going to put this one right about here. It's going to be 125 from the bottom and fairly close to being below where the 9-volt pad is. Okay, so I'm going to double check that one. Oh, no, I by accident. Okay, now everything's up. Now this is a pretty cool trick I'm going to teach you. There's a text bar here, and you can actually do quite a bit with this. For example, if I have the move tool selected, I press C2. Look at that, right jump to where my mouse, as I now have access to C2. This is particularly handy if, for example, you're zoomed in like this and you want to have access to R3. Look at that, jumps right to where your screen is without having to go zoom out. Okay, zoom in, scroll. Okay, now I found R3. So that's what the move. Now everything is true of this if you've got a different tool selected. So for example, if I've got the delete tool selected and I go C2 and I press return, look at that. Can't do it. It's telling me I shouldn't do this. Bad idea. Same with copy. I can go like this, copy C2. Can't. You can only do that with a library installed. I haven't got a library installed right now. So you do all sorts of things. The move tool is most handy. But you could also do other things. One of the pretty cool tools that you get on the layout is you can actually draw polygons. Polygons are particularly helpful. They're just like the lines that we would use to connect pads, but they're in shapes. So look at this. I just created a polygon there. And if I hit routing, look at that. It fills it all in. I'm going to undo what I just did there and show you what I can do now is with the move tool selected, I can actually switch to poly by going poly and pressing return. And look at that. This is now highlighted. And now my tool here is ready to route things. Just like that. Poly GND. I can also tell it to do something more very specific. So I'm going to go poly GND. GND is our code for ground, and if we go back to our schematic here, if we press info and select here, look at that, GND. That net is named GND. So what I'm telling my layout here to do when I go poly GND is I'm saying create a polygon that is also named and therefore connected to all the nets of all of our ground pads and all the parts that connect to ground. So if I hit return here, now my tool is told to build a poly, and I'm going to make a poly that connects the whole PCB. Look at that, just like that, okay? And it's named, I'm going to highlight it and go properties, it's named GND. So everything on the PCB that is supposed to connect to ground, because of it's told to on the schematic, is going to say, connect me to this gigantic polygon. And watch this. When I hit routing, this tool right here, which is rat's nest, it's called calculate the shortest air wires. What it does is it sort of sorts out all the connections for you. Look at this. Now ground no longer has an air wire. I'm going to undo that. Right? I'm going to undo. See that? That when I press rat's nest, this connection, all the connections that are supposed to go to ground are all like, bam, already done, no fuss, no muss. So now we're at the stage where we can begin to actually lay out our parts on the PCB. Now some guys are just sort of like, I'm just going to move everything over. So one thing you can do is you can pick everything up using our group tool. Remember, select move first and then select our group tool. Swing everything over. You can do this, left click, move group, or right click, sorry, move group, move everything over. That's one way to do it. Other people like a little bit more systematic approach, and I'm one of those people. Switch back and forth really easy. So I go to my schematic. I go for my input. I need to go next to my IC. So the first thing I'm going to grab is I'm going to trace through the schematic from input to output, one part at a time, adding them one at a time. So I'm going to go for my IC1. And just because I can, I'm going to flip it around a bit and think about, well, how do I want this to lay out? I'm going to put it on here. I'm going to press my rat's nest button. Another quick way to do it is if you're on move, for example, you can go rat, just press rat up at the top, hit return, and it automatically does the same thing. So let me see, look at that. Ready? Rat. Bam. Also did it, right? So it's telling me pin 4 is connected to ground, and we've got some other connections here that need to be made. And look at that. So right here, we've got a connection. We can just go like this. Why not? Right? Put it right there. So our input is right there, ready to get connected right in. Ground is there. We're doing fine. And if we look, pay attention, there's some other parts that we can end up connecting. What are these other parts? Well, let's go back to our schematic. We need C1. It connects between pin 1 and pin 8. So let's go here. Hey, look at this. Here's C1. I'm going to drag C1 over. I'm going to drop it right there. Look at that. See there? There's the little auto routing, or the routing lines that are telling us that this connects there. And if I press rat's nest, it puts it in place. Everything's peachy. Everything's good to go. Okay, so next part we can move over. Let's start to move things over. We've got drive. We've got our C2 here. Connects between pin 3 and pin 1, as well as pin 2 and pin 6 of the IC. Lugs 3 and 1 of the drive pot. So we can move this over. Where is it here? C2. Look at that. Huh. We just put this right over top of this. Just there like that. Why not? Next part, so we can add, well, we've got R1 and R2, C3 and C4, so why don't we just drag, actually, you know what, this is a good time to show you what I can do here. So I'm going to go R2, look at that, moves it over, I'm going to press the rat's nest button, it wants to connect there. Okay, well I can just spin this around, R1, look at that, okay, let's see here. Well, this part of R1 wants to connect there. Okay, so we can add that there. And when you go C3, let's connect there, and C4. Let's connect to there. Look at that. And look at that. There's an outer routing. There's a routing line right there. And if I hit rat, they both jump and connect to the big polygon that says it's ground. I'm gonna even some things out here. Yeah, no, I can leave a little space there. That's all right. Okay. Next thing I want to use. So we've got all of these parts on. We move to C5. Okie dokie. I'm going to zoom out here. C5. Where's that at? Oh, jumps right here. Wants to connect into C2, which also connects into this pad right here for the IC. So I can just go like this. It's all the same connection. I'm going to put this one right here. Alright. Okay. Move our LED pad over. Why not? It doesn't need to be over there. Okay. So now we got that. What's our next part? Connects to C5, R3. Now we can go R3. Here we go. Next, and it wants to connect to tone here. Actually, if I move this over a bit, I can almost create a straight line up and down. Look at that. I can move this part over a bit, this one over a bit. Why not? Now everything's all lined up vertically here. Oh, that's pretty cool. We got a vertical line there, the tone. Next part we need is we need D1 and D2. They both connect from the end of R3 and to that pin 3/2 of the tone. So we can go I'll just drag them over because I know where they are. They both want to connect to ground, so I'm going to flip them around here and just drop them right there. Just in line. Our next exit, we go exit out of pin 1 of the tone knob to R4. R4. There we go, look at that. It wants to connect between those two parts there. Now I'm going to bring this part way down here like the other ones because obviously all of our parts are down here. So if we move this up here, it's going to seem a little bit silly. We're going to have such a gigantic PCB. So we're going to move this down here. Notice that you've also got a line here that connects, and you can obviously see it connects to our C6. I don't even need to go back to the schematic. I'm just going to drag this over, because then I'm like, okie dokie, that makes sense. Rat it out. Look at that. It's got another straight line up and down. Cool. Next thing we do is we need to move all these parts over. C6. We've got no more parts. Where are these other parts? Oh, here they are right here. They connect.